Quintanilla gets his stage win. He's back in the game.
I give my 100% since the first kilometer.
The battle intensifies between Nasser Al-Attiyah and Sebastian Loeb.
For me, there is no strategy.
He took off in attack mode, no management. He's confident. I wouldn't have done that.
Now, it's time for the showdown.
We always wanted a little bit of the old Dakar back in the new style stuff, so it's going to be a harder marathon stage.
That's actually, the foundation of rally there.
You're not going to exactly know where you are on times and everything.
It'll add a bit of salt and pepper to the race.
We lived it naturally during the African years, and it was always in those moments that there was even more solidarity between all the competitors.
We all got to sleep in tents and ration together, so those are some of the best times of Dakar.
I'm excited to try something new. I'm sure I will survive, but I'm a little bit scared of the darkness.
So here's this 48-hour stage, this surprise of the Dakar 2024. So a stage of almost 600 kilometers, a little less. Dunes in the empty quarter, but what makes it so special is that it will be taking place over 2 days, 2 full days to cover 600 kilometers. It's rare, but we don't have a choice. The stage is difficult and long. We've decided that at 4 p.m. on the first day, all competitors will have to join one of the bivouacs we set along the route. These are very, very basic bivouacs with just a sleeping bag, a tent and military-style food ration and nothing else. So they spend the night there, and the next morning we start again in the order of arrival, one by one every minute, and the competitors set off again to finish this stage number 6, reminiscent of the great epics of the African era, endless stages.
And so to the 48-hour chrono stage. And for all the talk of tactics and strategy, most bike riders have a simple plan for this June bonanza: get as far as they possibly can while the clock's still ticking.
My strategy for today is to just ride as long as I can until they force me to stop.
I think today and tomorrow, this chrono stage, I think it's just going to be like a survival. So we'll see how we can do.
Joan Barreda had a nasty crash yesterday and injured his ribs. Hardly ideal when you're opening on a day like this. But the Spaniard has shown his resistance on many occasions, and he put in an incredible battling performance. He was still at the front when the leading bikers stopped for the day, having spent 7 hours in the saddle. Bang Bang picked up over 8 minutes in bonuses, but still lost half an hour, and he soon ended up with some company. Nacho Cornejo had set off in 6th place, but blasted past the riders in front of him: Mitchek, Gonçalves, Chiemza and Mayo, joining up with Barreda at the front. A minor crash here, but nothing too serious. Barreda no doubt happy to have a navigator of Nacho's calibre with him. The Chilean also shipped some time, around 15 minutes, but remains very much a part of the title conversation. Unfortunately, not everybody would make it through the empty quarter. Skylar Howes ground to a halt just 40 kilometres in, having already noticed a technical issue on his Honda, and that would be game over for the American, who was unable to make the necessary repairs in the desert. His bike had to be airlifted out, Honda losing their second factory rider after Tosha Shirena.
That's it. It's the finish of my Dakar this year, and the first few days were not so good to me, and I was really far back in the standings, but I was looking forward to clawing my way back and doing much better. But I don't know. It's a bummer year for me, and to stop now is unfortunate. So looking to go back and rebuild and do better for next year.
Others were struggling in the soft sand, which meant their machines were guzzling gas quicker than expected. Just ask poor old Pablo Quintanilla. The Chilean was the last Rally GP rider out of the gate after his stage victory yesterday, but disaster struck just 10 kilometres before the refuelling point as he ran out of gas. David McBride and Orano Kelly of Vendetta Racing coming to the rescue, and Pablo was able to keep going. Now let's get back to our front runners. In the end, 12 men made it to Bivouac F, which meant they covered a whopping 513 kilometres in the dunes out of a total of 625. Ross Branch was among them, dropping 8 minutes or so to the day's fastest riders. It is a bit early to get out the calculators, but he's likely to find himself in second place overall when we get back to Subaita tomorrow. Luciano Benavides had to change his engine yesterday after a couple of late misfires, and that meant incurring a 15-minute penalty. Definitely a blow to his chances of winning the Dakar, but the world champion hit back with a solid ride today. He was 5th fastest over the course of the day's action, and that should see him go back into the top 10 overall. Daniel Sanders seems to be growing into this Dakar, despite the fact that his build-up was marred by that terrible broken femur last spring. The long days don't seem to be taking too much of a toll on Chucky, who was only 3.5 minutes down when they all stopped today. It's not going to be simple for the Australian to fight for the podium, but you can guarantee he'll keep fighting. And here's another fighter, Dakar debutante Jane Daniels, who's been leading the women's class. The 4-time Enduro world champion running into a spot of bother after an early crash. A couple of hours lost for Jane, but she did make it through to Bivouac C. And so to our top 3 on the day, the riders who had clocked the best times after an incredible 6.5 hours in the saddle. 3rd fastest, Toby Price, who was unhappy with the number of navigation mistakes that he's been making so far. This performance should reassure him. The Australian just cruising his way over these dunes. He's still around half an hour back overall. But while it was a bad day for 2 of the Honda riders, Skyler and Pablo, it was an excellent day for their teammates Ricky Brabeck and Adrian van Beveren, both of them in contention for the Stage 6 victory. Ricky had a slight off here, but otherwise he is looking laser focused this year as he looks to add to his Dakar title from 2020. By the finish today, he had snatched the virtual overall lead from Branch by around 3 minutes. But the fastest man out there was Van Beveren. The Frenchman's been frustrated in the dunes in recent years, often finding himself too near the front to gain much time, but today he had almost the entire Rally GP field in front of him. He used his nous to manage fuel, as we heard, and showed all of the potential of his new Honda CRF 450 to end the day 1 minute and 21 seconds ahead of Brabeck. VBA also throwing his hat into the ring as a potential overall winner. We don't have times for you as the stage officially concludes tomorrow with a much shorter spin of 112 kilometres. This is yesterday's top 10, and everyone but Quintanilla and Romain Dumontier made it to Bivouac F. The Rally 2 riders did start further back after all.
The cars were set to head out into the empty quarter and take on the 48-hour chrono. Nasser Al-Attiyah would be opening the road, with some of the other frontrunners starting later, after tactically losing time on stage 5 in order to have tracks to follow. After a short stage yesterday, they were in for the long haul today. Nasser Al-Attiyah was in full attack mode and was first to leave. even for the 5-time champ, opening the road was proving a challenge. Guerlain Chichery had moved ahead, and soon Juan Cruz Jacopini had caught Alatia after he'd gotten stuck. The Argentinian started 6 minutes after the pro-drive man, but the two were now side by side, both following the single wheel tracks of Chichery. For this stage, the cars and the bikes ran different routes, so they would usually have some bike tracks to follow, but today it was just an empty expanse. Yazid Al-Raji was leading the Dakar, the first Saudi ever to do so, until 51 kilometers into the chrono. The wrecked overdrive Toyota on its side. Co-driver Timo Gottschalk, crestfallen.
Unlucky, we do it well. We catch Jacopini, we catch Chichery, and we come here and small kick, very small. You can see it is nothing. But I don't know, he take the car like this and the car landing in the side way. And with high speed, we are in high speed and roll, part of game of Dakar.
Sebastian Loeb started 35th on the road. It was a big time penalty that Loeb took yesterday, 15 minutes, in order to be further back in the pack. Other frontrunners like Sainz and Peter Hansel intentionally slowed to drop a couple of minutes, but nothing like to the extent of Loeb. The Frenchman was on a charge though, and thankfully for him, there's a low risk of punctures in the dunes. Monsieur Dakar, Stefan Peter Hansel, was flying. 225 kilometers into the stage, he was running 4th, having been as high as 2nd, as he carved his way down giant dunes. He's on the lookout for a 15th Dakar victory, but it seems this isn't going to be the Frenchman's year. We actually got a puncture, and when we wanted to use the hydraulic jack, it broke. The body of the jack was torn, so we lost all the fluid, and we don't have a manual jack, so we don't know how we're going to change the wheel. The hydraulic jack system is connected to the hydraulic system of the power steering. So we no longer have power steering, which makes things a bit complicated. I really don't know how we are going to manage. And so the clock struck 4 p.m. The drivers had to park up in the next rest area they came to. Defending champion Nasser Al-Attiyah would have inherited the overall lead with Al-Raji crashing out, but so far it's been a surprisingly uncompetitive performance from the Qatari. At the rest area, he bemoaned the difficulties of having to be first on the road all day. 400 kilometers into this 548-kilometer stage, he's 5th and 24 minutes off the fastest driver, while Sebastian Loeb's gamble appears to have paid off to a certain extent. After 400k, he was 3rd fastest, just 5 minutes off the lead, but yesterday's 15-minute time loss is still going to be a big hit to Loeb's hopes of a first Dakar title. Matthias Ekström was not happy with the driving and navigation yesterday, as the Swede lost 5 minutes with various errors over quite a short stage. The positive was he was delighted with the setup changes he made, and said the car felt the best it had all rally, leaving him optimistic for the future. Well, now we're in the future, and the changes certainly worked. Ekström ran at the front all day, and at the 400-kilometer mark was lying 2nd. Ekström was behind his teammate Carlos Sainz. Sainz was less than 5 minutes ahead, but the Spaniard was phenomenal today. The quickest driver over the first 400 kilometers, it seemed a trouble-free run. Al-Raji's shunt, Al-Attiyah's struggles, and Sainz's pace means that the 61-year-old is provisionally leading the rally. So this is how far the drivers have made it into the 48-hour chrono. Former leader Yazid Al-Raji is out. His dreams of winning a first Dakar over.
An unprecedented 48-hour chrono stage awaits, which will leave some challengers trembling, others challenging. The Chilean duo of Chaleco and Juan Pablo would forge the first tracks for the challengers. The king of the sand couldn't quite match the pace and prowess of yesterday, time-wise. Full throttle in the dunes for Rocket Rocas. It was mano a mano, but Chuska and Caviar Glasso were inseparable. Both buggies making it to Bivouac D at kilometre 398, the dueling duo delivering on their favoured terrain. Guthrie was the main antagonist for the first part of stage 6 for Gokshao. He was even making great strides on an ultimate, but faded towards the cut-off time of 4 PM. Still making it to kilometre 398, but almost 17 minutes behind. Into the unknown and launching off dunes like a ski jumper on the piste, Eric Gokshao couldn't be stopped, showing he can perform across all terrains. When the clock ticked 4 PM, Gutierrez was second best to Eric Gokshao, although 14 minutes down she made it to kilometre 398. Who can stop the Polish wonderkid tomorrow?
It's a long way down, especially when things go wrong. Gerfares out of title contention after a dramatic flip over the dunes in stage 5. A warning as the SSVs return to the scene of the crime. Sebastian Guayasamín came to Saudi targeting the podium, but the Ecuadorian nearly an hour away from that being realised. Taking the legend status this edition, 8th in 2023, still his best overall. In his second Dakar, Cristiano Batista was bringing the Brazilian flair to this party of 4, but despite some buggy and boogieing alongside rookie compatriot Rodrigo Varela, the pair slipped up on the sandy dance floor. That could yet cost the Samba duo their places on the overall podium. Another newbie keeping herself on track was Sarah Price. After Eric Gokshao made dramatic history last year, the stunt woman could yet make a splash as the first American female to win a Dakar title. The first dynamic June days for the 31-year-old and co-driver Jeremy Gray. The pair ducked down to sleep for the night, just 10 minutes off the pace, and loving every minute of this adventure.
I'm looking forward to it. I love this. This is really crazy to me. This is all wild. Like, it's kind of nuts to think that we're only a quarter, we're going to sleep somewhere, we don't know where yet, and then we're hopping on some plane after the stage is done and going back for the next stage. It's like, what? Is this real life right now?
T4 leader Jérôme de Sadler and co-driver Michael Mesch were keeping this safe and sound. The Swiss and French crew, beneficiaries of Fares' crash, the Catalan falling more than 4 hours behind. Well, just 10 minutes separating two brothers, Michael driving for de Sadler, brother Adrien keeping Yazir Sedan company. The homegrown talent is really making child's play of the momentous sandpit. The Saudi took the honours of picking up his and Adrien's W2RC medals last night. With Brazilian struggles, a good chance for the MMP car to climb onto the overall podium. Xavier Desoutres coming into this marathon with a second stage win under his belt. The Frenchman has so far excelled on the short rides. While the prologue was quick, Stage 5 showed Polaris could bounce and dive with the best of the buggies. 20 minutes to make up on overnight. Swiss leader, well placed to try and push for successive wins. Previously third in Original by Motul 2020 before taking on T4 last year. A terrific 10th place finish in 2023 set Florent Vassad up for a tilt to the podium this year. But 4 hours out of contention, but a chance to let rip alongside Nicolas Rey. Second at 300 kilometers, but threatening a first ever stage win tomorrow. While it was a much needed challenge to South Racing's dominance from other teams, now they've a chance to show their mettle. João Ferreira undid his hard work after the dunes took a hammer to his Can-Am, but the Portuguese speedster knows there's still time to be made up. A long way before we know the outcome of this 48 hours of pains and gains, but João and Felipe Palmeiro putting themselves in a position to make up some time. A Brazilian struggles means there could yet be a shake-up in the overall standings.
The truck's getting underway this morning with Teruhito Sugawara, the 7th man out, several places ahead of the defending champion, Janus van Kasteren. The Dutchman roaring his way into this 2-day, 548-kilometre monster, and when you hear his 10-ton monster of a truck coming up behind you, it's best to get out of the way. Van Kasteren and his crew got stuck in a hole yesterday and had to be rescued by their teammate Michiel Becks. And there were more problems to come today, with punctures costing them around 40 minutes. Forget a symphony over the sands, this was a full-on rock concert for the heavy metal beasts. Low Price suffered starter failure yesterday and had to do repairs in the dunes. Like Van Kasteren, he has run into a few issues since the terrain turned sandy. He also lost a decent chunk of time today, which means that he is likely to finish the 6th stage in 3rd place overall. But lest we forget, there's still a very long way to go. After some mechanical issues at the start of the Dakar, Mitchell van den Brink has been one of the top performers in the past few days. Today he was just one of 2 trucks to make it through to Bivouac C, covering 347 of the stage's 548 kilometres in total. By tomorrow he should be much closer to the overall podium. And by tomorrow this man could well be the overall leader. Another excellent performance from Martin Matchik, who was the fastest driver out there in his truck, Chenda. At the last point they were all together, the Czech led Low Price and Van Kasteren by around 40 minutes. He looks in a perfect position to snatch control of this rally.
Tomorrow, the 48-hour chrono loop around Shabaita concludes, ahead of a rest day in Riyadh on Saturday. The second part of the duel through the dunes. Dunes that have already taken some big-name scalps. Skylar Howes, Stefan Petterhansel and Yazid Al-Raji, all out of contention. Who will make it to the end of the 48 hours? Tonight, a basic tent, rations, and very little company. Albeit good company. Tomorrow, the conclusion of the 6th stage of the 2024 Dakar Rally.